Welcome to the Empowerment Zone with Ramona Houston, where we zone in on Black and Brown relations and our journey to empowering our communities.
Hello, welcome to my podcast. Today is May 20th, 2020, and I'm so happy to have Anita Henderson with us today. She is a book lover like me. As you know, I love to read, and she is an entrepreneur, owner of The Right Image. That's WRITE, The Right Image, and isn't that neat? Right Image. And creator of Write Your Life author coaching program. And what she does professionally is that she helps professionals and entrepreneurs to publish their own book and use their books as a marketing strategy to leverage their careers. I actually met Anita online, and I was so delighted she reached out to me. We had a great introductory conversation, and I got to know all about her and her work. And I look forward to working with her to get my book out soon. And so she can count on me as being one of her future clients. So welcome, Anita. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat with you.
So tell me about your work.
My work spans my life, right? I have been a book nerd and a word nerd and a writing nerd all my life. Words have just, encapsulated my entire career and my interests. As from a child, I would wake up Saturday mornings and write poetry. And throughout school, I wrote, you name it, I wrote it. Stories and poems and the whole 9 yard. And I've been a book lover forever. I was the one who was running to the bookmobile every time it came to school. And so my career has evolved. I was a journalism major in college and worked in marketing and public relations in my early career. And then when I started my company, The Right Image, I was focused on marketing, communications, and public relations, and decided to pivot about a decade ago and focus on book publishing, helping people actually write their stories, get them published, and figure out how to leverage those stories in their business and in their career. And it has been interesting. When I pivoted my business, it was right around the time of the 2008 recession, when marketing dollars were declining, yet at the same time, the popularity of independent book publishing, self-publishing, was on the increase. And so that kind of allowed me to merge my love of words and marketing and storytelling with my love of books and helping other people. I have a secret superpower to be able to transform some of the most mundane information into an interesting story, and even to help people with decades and decades of experience and knowledge to compile it into a story that people are interested in reading. So now I help, I coach entrepreneurs and corporate executives to, take all that information, whether it's their career, their life career in whatever their field is, to tell a story about that, or if it's an entrepreneur who has a process or a methodology or some system that they want to share, to break that down into points that people can benefit from. And even those of us who have inspiring life stories, I help those folks, take all of that information, all of the drama, and even the simplicity of their life, and turn it into a story that other people can benefit from. So I love it.
So, I also see that you have written several books. So what type of topics do you cover?
I have written, as an author and a co-author, 8 books. I'm working on number 9. Probably half of those are focused on book publishing, writing, and marketing. So to help, potential or aspiring authors understand the process and what my book production process is all about. But I've also contributed to an anthology, a fictional anthology. I've contributed to a genealogy book. And, a variety of things. So this next book is going to be focused on entrepreneurship, and it's called The Minimalist Entrepreneur, to help those folks who've been in business for a while to kind of recapture their life and their time and even their sanity, and stop complicating the concept of entrepreneurship and really just keep it simple, sweetheart.
I like that. So when you look at working with professionals in writing their book, as well as writing your own books, what do you feel like has been the greatest challenge or hurdle that you help your clients overcome in their process of writing their books? What are the biggest, let's say, challenges, because everybody's different, and I'm sure there are top 3 to 5 challenges that you find consistent throughout some of your clients?
Right. There are a couple. The one that comes to mind first, and this is across the board, whether I'm working with a corporate professional who has 30 years experience, or if I'm working with someone who's in ministry and they want to share their life story, or an entrepreneur who's been in business for 5 years and they want to, use their book to get clients. Across the board, when I work with clients, almost always we're faced with the issue of confidence. Whether it's a male or a female, no matter how much experience they have or how well they, how urgently they want to tell their story, there's this issue about confidence in writing. Writing seems to be this little soft spot for so many people because we think we're not good writers. Why? We've been told by our, 7th grade English teacher who sent back that report all marked up in red, and our feelings are hurt. That was like 40 years ago. And we're still, grieving for that and trying to heal from that red marked up paper. And so I think for a lot of people, they come to the writing table with a strong desire to write their story and explain their message and all of this stuff, but they're a little bit, a little trepidation when it comes to actually, does this make sense? Does this flow well? Who wants to read? Who cares about my story? Who would even want to read this? They know they want to tell it. They've had dozens of people over how many years tell them, you really should write a book. And they believe that they should, but they don't believe that they can. And that's when they come to me. Help me, Anita. Help me make sense of all this stuff. So one of the biggest things is confidence, lack of confidence for a lot of people.
Isn't that amazing? When you talk about working with entrepreneurs, you have to have a lot of confidence to even leave a job and go out and go for it on your own, as well as working with company executives, who through their leadership exhibit confidence. And then you say that is kind of central to everybody. Can I write? And it does go back to education. Did I use the right verb? Did I use the right sentence structure? And that red pen that just seems to always come to mind in your eye.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it is that, do I have the right words and am I structuring them properly? But it is also, does my story really have value? Do you really think, as a professional who does this all the time, Anita, do you really think this story is valuable and valid? And oftentimes they're looking for that little bit of encouragement, that stroking, that some kind of positive affirmation to say, your story matters. And the bottom line is, yes, your story matters. Everyone's story matters. No one's story is yours. And no one is going to tell your story like you will.
Exactly.
So you might as well tell it. There is a saying, from years ago from my PR days, when it comes to getting the word out about who you are or what you do or what your thing is, tell it first, tell it yourself, and tell it all.
Oh, wow.
So don't wait for somebody else to tell your story, because guaranteed they're not going to tell it the way you will. Don't wait and let everybody else get the story out before you do, right? You really see it in politics these days. You see it in the entertainment industry. People want to be the first one to tell it, right? So in the media, it's always the first one with the story wins.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think in our Black and Brown communities, we need to keep that in mind.
Yes. And that goes back to my original point, is telling our own stories from our own perspectives. That it's important that instead of people talking about what we're thinking, that we tell what we're thinking. One of the intriguing...
I have had the pleasure over the years to work with several genealogists. My husband happens to be a family historian and genealogist and a lecturer, and he wrote a book several years ago and introduced me to this genealogy community of African-American genealogists in particular. And I created something called the Genealogist Writing Room. We have a Facebook group, and the point is to encourage those people who are doing genealogy research to tell the stories of all these ancestors you have found in your research. We tend to get very upset in the African-American community in particular when other people who are not African-American or Black or Brown tell stories about Black folks. And it's not even that the story is incorrect. It's just that how dare some white person tell a Black person's story? Our feelings are hurt. Well, my response to that is, why don't you tell it?
Exactly.
You tell it first. You tell your own story. You tell it your way so that you can ensure that your side of the story is included, that it is told correctly from your perspective, and that you're among the first to tell it, because oftentimes the first one to tell the story sets the precedent. Recently, our U.S. Attorney General made a comment, and this is a saying that we've heard over the years, that he was being asked, what will history say about this time that we're in, this pandemic? And he said something to the effect that, well, history is told by the one who wins. Mm-hmm. And so the quote really is that history is told by the victor, yes, right? Yes. Whoever wins gets a chance to tell the story. And that is a fact that we can see in our history books, if nothing else. So whether it's fair or not, it is something that we know to be true in many instances. And so we as African Americans and Hispanics and Latinos, brown people across the board, Asians as well, we need to start seeing ourselves as the victors mm-hmm. in our own stories, mm-hmm. and that we are the ones who are responsible to tell those stories.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And see,
I don't know if you remember when the movie The Help came out.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So it was a book first, and there was a movie adaptation, and a lot of people were highly upset about it. Because how dare this white lady write this story about the lives of these Black women who served in these white people's households? Well, and she had interviewed, these Black women who were servants or whatever. And you kind of get upset because, well, gosh, the Black women should have been the ones to tell their story. Well, they could have, and sometimes we say, I don't know how, and I don't know how that process works, and maybe it wouldn't have been as popularized as it was. But she took an opportunity and told the story. How accurate it was, who knows? She got the story out. So where's our version of the story? Mm-hmm. That's my question.
Mm-hmm. That brings to mind one of the historians who actually writes about Black women who were servants. I believe my mind just went blank. But anyway, it's important not only, you have her as a historian, right? I think it's Shaw. Her last name is Shaw. But you have people writing about those histories, but also that you have to write them yourselves. Like you were just saying, those women could have, and not just wait for a historian to write about it, but the women themselves. But one of the challenges I know that we have in the African-American community is that we are an oral people, right? We are an oral people, and many of our stories are passed down orally instead of being written down. I'm fortunate enough to have some aunts, great aunts. They were my grandmother's aunts who raised 5 generations of the family, who were descendants of the Harrises, and their grandfather was one of the first Black pioneers in our town in Brownwood, which was Brown County at the time. And they were some of the first Black pioneers, and they would often tell stories about the family. And the great-great-grandfather was one of the first Black people there, but he was the enslaved person of one of the founders of Brown County. But on his deathbed, he also admitted that it was also his son. And so anyway, we heard this story over and over again, in all these different stories. And one time, just once, when I came home from college, I believe was my freshman year, I decided to write down some of the history that they said. That's the only thing we have written, that could have, that survived. But I have the whole genealogy of the family tree since this first person. But the point is they had so many stories. If we would have only known to write it down, or for them to write them down themselves. But I find that very interesting when you talk about the help.
Well, I agree with you that we have traditionally and historically been an oral culture and community. The obvious reason is that, in America, Black people were not legally allowed to read and write. We overcame that, and there were many, obviously, throughout history, we have many, cases of people who did learn to read and write, and that's not an issue for us right now. So being able to write our stories, honestly, is not an issue. So get over trying to make it all literary and all that kind of stuff. Just write down the facts, okay? Write down the things that people will never find in a history book. They're not going to find in a history book the information about your ancestor unless your ancestor somehow was famous or, wealthy or whatever, right? Write it down. However, in this day and age, we have so many other ways to record our stories. We have wonderful things like podcasts, like what you're doing. We have other types of audio recording opportunities. We have video. There are blog sites, that are available. So you don't have to write a book, You can sing a song. And that's one of the other ways that we transitioned through storytelling when we weren't able to write it down. We sang a song about it, right? So there are other ways. There's no, we should not be making excuses to not tell the story. We can sing about it. We can blog about it. We can write a book. We can do an audio recording. We can do a video recording. And so we encourage, in the genealogy realm, it is highly encouraged for anyone. Any elder, the oldest person in your family, you need to just sit down with them with a cup of tea and let them talk. Just ask them some questions, general questions about what they remember when they were growing up, what was pivotal for them, as they matured, advice they may have for the next generation, all that. Just record them and let them talk. That is the foundation of a story that you may want to tell later, or someone in your family history may want to tell later. When those elders are gone, they're gone. And I can't tell you how many times, being at genealogy conferences and in conversations with family historians, that they say they wish, to the point of tears, wish they had recorded great grandma or grandpa so-and-so or uncle or auntie or whoever. And they're gone now. Take the advantage, take the opportunity now to do that.
That is some great advice for our audience. If you don't necessarily feel comfortable or want to write, at least record in some kind of way, whether it's video, audio, record those stories and pass them on down. Maybe the next generation want to write those stories. So that is a great solution in terms of writing our stories in our own perspective. Do you have any other recommendations for our audience?
Oh, wow. I think for everybody out there, and this has very little, I don't know, I guess you could tie it into storytelling and sharing ourselves and our history, is just that nothing beats knowledge. Mm-hmm. Nothing beats knowledge, knowing. There's so much to know and so much we have to be constantly learning about how the world works. We have to be curious about everything that's happening. And we've got to keep our eyes open and ask questions about why certain things are happening the way they're happening at the time that they're happening. We talk so much about being woke, right, in this generation. And that means different things to different people. But I want us to continue to be woke in a variety of different ways, and not to the point of making ourselves angry, but to keep ourselves aware. So that goes from politics to technology to, I don't know, financial information to whatever we can get our hands on to make ourselves better. And it all starts with you as an individual, and it spreads to your family and to your community, to your city or town, your state, your country, and the entire globe. We are global citizens. And we have to understand that although we were born in a certain place and into a certain, culture or family, that we have the opportunity now, more than at any time in the past, to be more and to do more. And to, allow yourself to go beyond the limitations that have been set up, whether they're real or imposed or whatever, and just be your best self and just always be learning.
Great advice. Well, thank you so much for joining us. That time went by so fast. Yes. So if anybody wants to learn more about the right image and your work, or is looking for someone to help them write their book and they want to contact you as the person to do that, how would they find you? Are you on social media? Do you have a website?
I am on social media. I'm on LinkedIn at Anita R. Henderson. I am on Instagram at Anita, the author's midwife. And you can also find information about me on my website, writeyourlife.net.
Well, thank you so much, Anita. Thank you for coming. I hope you'll come back at some point in time. And congratulations on the great work you're doing. And I wish you much success.
Thanks, Ramona. Keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you.
A special thank you to the incredible team of the Empowerment Zone. Terry Gully, theme song. NADWorks, digital support. And, of course, our featured guest.